Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition because we are talking about NXT TakeOver WarGames 2020, which just ended a few minutes ago. Just going to do our normal stuff here. We're going to recap everything that happened on the night, tell you all the winners and losers, our thoughts on all the matches, break down everything that we want to go through, top to bottom, left and right, positives, negatives, all that other kind of stuff. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, is Robert DeFelice.
Tony, how good does it feel when these shows deliver?
It's so much easier than when you have to watch these shows like week by week that you don't enjoy, and you have to constantly report about that. But it's a good thing. You can end up actually like sit back, relax. Well, I can't really do that if I'm doing too many coverage things at the same time, but enough that I'm not like flipping out angry at something or whatever. Like, I enjoy that so much better. Peace and
It's
tranquility is so much better than insanity.
it's weird because it was a very violent night,
Yeah.
but it just this felt like NXT. This felt like NXT proper. Like this felt like NXT the way it's supposed to be, and I enjoyed it.
I will say, not as big on this as I thought that I was going to be. I didn't like every match. Actually, there's not a single match met my expectations. However, doesn't mean that I dislike the pay-per-view. So if anybody's thinking that means I'm going to crap all over, that's not the case.
I think we come into this with a weird like opposite perspectives because I haven't watched NXT in so long because I'm so stuck on AEW on Wednesday nights. So this felt so fresh. Like this felt good for me. You primarily watch NXT, so
Right.
you're like kind of maybe burned out on that product, but I enjoyed it a lot.
It's not so much burned out on the product. It's just, I think that every one of these matches, in particular one of them was a real, like, just down point. I think they all could have been better. And if you check out, because I wrote, of course, there's a thing up on e-wrestling news, there's a thing on Bleacher Report, there's a thing on Smark Out Moment, there's a thing on the Ring Report. It's like just all over the place. But if you look around and you'll see, I am positive on them. It's just that one of them I felt was lacking in a major way. A couple other ones were just a little bit underwhelming compared to my expectations. I did have high expectations for them, so that's a little bit my fault too. Actually, you know what? It's not my fault because you're supposed to have high expectations. So yeah, I'm not going to take the blame for that one. That's not the case. But I will talk positives. I will talk some of the negatives that happened here and just some of the oddball types of things. And I want everybody else to do the same thing as well. Just because you're not on the podcast doesn't mean you don't have an opinion. So we want to hear what that opinion is. And that means that you should be dropping a comment on whatever platform you're listening to us, because that is the whole point of the comment section. So if you are just checking this out on like the audio streams, like Spotify or Amazon Music or Stitcher or iTunes or Google Podcasts or whatever, then send a tweet at SmarkOutMoment, or you can send a tweet at DudeFelice, send a tweet at Tony Mango. Follow us there, by the way. Oh, look at that. Got a plug out of the way. Also post something on the Facebook page, facebook.com/SmarkOutMoment, or of course, SmarkOutMoment.com. But I would say the best thing for you to do is to hop on over to the YouTube channel if you're not listening to us there. While you're over there, not only do you get the chance of interacting with everybody else that leaves a comment, but you can hit that like button. I'd love it if you did that. That helps out quite a bit. There's also the applause button if you really, really like this and you want to help out on the monetary side of things. There's also the join button, which is the same as the Patreon. I'll break that down very quickly in a little bit. But if you don't have the monetary side of things to help with that, make sure at the very least you're hitting that subscribe button and ring that little notification bell while you're at it. So let's start off with the kickoff. I had a couple of notes here. The pre-show, despite the fact that there wasn't anybody in the arena, or at least not in like the frames or anything, they were piping in very low crowd noise. I don't think that you should really do that when you've got nobody around there, because then it varies, like, it's very clear that that's just fake,
So I don't want to use the word nostalgic in this case, but I'm already like, I kind of dug the no fans. The like, the stiffness and the like Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank felt like a big match. You could hear the big moves. I think WarGames would have benefited from maybe a little bit less of the piped in crowd noise. Like you have the crowd there. So it's a small crowd, but you have them there. Use their noise.
I'd like to hear more of that noise, definitely. And I think with a pre-show, you can get away with just having silence. It's not like that's weird. It's pre-show. Nobody cares. You know? Who's cheering? It's just Wade Barrett and Sam Roberts talking. You shouldn't have people being like, yeah, it's so great. Like, you know, it's just one of those things. I loved this little video package that they did where all these people were doing their impressions of William Regal's WarGames shout. Fantastic.
Yeah. And the one thing I do miss is that there's no actual, like, there's no William Regal on the show to say WarGames. I think like that should just be, instead of what's her name, Alicia, instead of her doing the ring announcing, just have Regal do it. And now it's time for WarGames. That's it.
He did end that segment with just, you're all terrible. You know, this is how you really do it, and did that.
I think that, like, for as much as I hate social media and the way it's become so meta, that's so much fun when they're just like, yeah, it's WarGames. And then there's the cutout part where Gargano and Candice, and Gargano's going, yeah, WarGames. She's like, no, that's not how you say it. It's not wah, it's war. And he just goes, wow, what is it good for? It's just dumb, but like it's good.
It's a good dumb fun, and meta goes a long way if it's a little bit sprinkled here and there. If you go too far into it, sometimes it can get annoying. This is the right type of thing, I think, because it's just them having fun with it. It's like, yeah, he says it great. Let's all do our impressions about it.
They have a shirt now, by the way. William Regal has a WarGames shirt. I don't know how long
Really?
it's been since he's had a shirt, but he's got a WarGames shirt.
That's great. I noticed a little production glitch, a typical thing that you would have seen on like the Impact shows lately, where Barrett's trying to set up the main event video package and they're already playing it. And he's just like, now it's time for the main event. Like, the hell with this, kind of a thing. But that's mostly what the kickoff was. There's no matches on it. It's just them running down the card, which, you know what? It's a half hour. Totally fine. Do that and make it to where you don't have to bog down the rest of the card of the actual pay-per-view with...
Although there was a dark match.
Was there?
It was Stallion, Ashanti the Adonis, and I believe Atlas against Legado del Fantasma.
Huh. Wonder why they did that.
I think they always had them, but like, they have an actual crowd, so yet again, they did it for the crowd. They'll probably air it on 205 Live.
Yeah, and they might as well. If they have that, they should be recording things and make it a little bit easier on themselves.
Yeah.
So let's go to the first match of the night, which was the women's WarGames match. We had Team Shotzi against Team Candice. First note that I've got here is Shotzi's got a new tank, which we all, kind of saw coming. And on the front of it, there's a skull, and there's also the words the letters TCB. What is TCB?
Taking care of business. Is
that what it's supposed to be standing for?
Yep.
I'm not sure I like that as much then, because that's just kind of like, that's it, really? It's not like she's using that as her catchphrase.
Yeah, just taking care of business. Nothing special.
Huh. Well, that's kind of lame. I was trying to think of like some other kind of catchphrase that she's doing, because I'm like it doesn't fit with Welcome to the Ball Pit. It doesn't, like, she's not calling herself like the something.
Tanks, crazy balls. There you go.
The crayon bowl. I don't know. Tell us what your best TCB would be, your acronym, in the comments below. I thought that was maybe something more interesting. Now I'm just sort of like, that's a little lame. But now it shoots, so that's kind of neat. Kind of reminded me of American Gladiators a little bit.
Crazy blue tree or something.
We started off with Dakota Kai and Ember Moon. Terrible moonsault, not moonsault, terrible Hurricanrana from Ember Moon. She's laying down and she's trying to do the thing where she like kicks her legs up and catches Dakota Kai and flips her. Dakota Kai never should have sold that shit. She didn't come close to grabbing her.
Well, I don't know. Ember's hit or miss. She makes up for it later with a fucking sick move on some chairs, but I agree with you.
Yeah, Ember
Terrible.
is very hit or miss. She had a lot of potential to her at first in NXT, and over the past couple of years, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm going nuts
You're
over
not a
her.
fan anymore?
I wouldn't go so far to say I'm not a fan, but she went from she's a future champion and she should kick some serious ass and be like a mainstay to like, well, I kind of get why they didn't give her the
Do
title
you
the way
think
that they
that
did.
like it's kind of retrospect where you go, well, they didn't really run with her, and now you're starting to see the cracks?
Yep.
Like, not to always bury this guy, but Ziggler, you know, they didn't run with him for so long that now you just see it. Like, they made it happen. Like, they manifested it. So you
Ziggler,
see why
though,
they.
I think with Ziggler, if he would have actually gotten a decent run, he wouldn't be in the problem he's in now. Because the problem he's in is he doesn't want to change past this character. But if he would have had that character run, he couldn't do the whole I'm the guy who's so good that he deserved to get better than what he got, because he would have gotten it. And then maybe he could have been able to actually like grow and change and become a little bit more interesting than for like a decade, say, I'm the best and you got to give me more credit, you know? Moon, I'm sort of like, well, I'm not writing her off yet as some kind of future big kind of deal, but
Hold on.
I get it now, you know?
Hold on. I think Triple H just said Undertaker in 2021 will be a coach at the Performance Center.
Huh. Look at that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I
I
like
think
that
for
idea.
coming out of the holidays, like that's something they're definitely going to be talking about. They wanted to enjoy his retirement for a little while, but they're definitely talking about it. So if that's a real thing, the coaches at NXT are DX and the Undertaker. Like, what?
It's pretty sweet, you know?
Yeah, like what the hell?
If you could just like add more of my favorites to the mix, you know? Just be
Yeah,
like, all right, just bring McFoley in,
can't
just
miss.
bring like Edge, so on and so forth.
The Rock's daughter's there, so he'll probably pop in every now and again.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Some other notes that I've got here. Wade Barrett totally didn't realize that Team Shotzi had the advantage. Every time that they were talking about the next person coming in, he's like, yeah, Shotzi's really like in a shit spot here. It's going to be 2-on-1. And it's like, yeah, but she's
Well,
getting, her teammate.
you know what? Though I don't blame him. He didn't know because he's so used to the heel being the one with the advantage.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of funny. Shotzi brings in a toolbox. We get nothing much going on there, all that much. Raquel Gonzalez comes in. She's kicking some ass. I'm writing down my notes about like, okay, Rhea Ripley's going to be next, and then it's going to be, like that kind of pattern. Got that right. We got more kendo stick stuff. I'm so sick and tired of the kendo sticks, but it seems like that's never going to end at this point. And here's one of my issues with this match. Io Shirai starts to get in the mix. She brings a ladder. She puts it in the ring, and Gonzalez stops her from coming in. So she tries to get a second ladder and puts it in, and Gonzalez stops her. And then she gets like a chair, and she's booted out, and then she stopped to do that. And they shut the cage door, and she tries to climb it, and they kick her down, and she's not able to get in there. And I'm like, all right, you're going back to the well too many times now. If this would have been like once or twice, it would have been okay. But by this point, the pace already slowed down in the match so much. For some reason, after Toni Storm came in, it just like got a little boring. And then the Io Shirai thing should have been like, okay, now it's going to pick back up. And instead, what they were just doing was like, nope, not coming in. Nope, not coming in. Nope, not coming in. Nope, not coming. And it's like, all right, come on. Can you do something now? It set up this thing with Candice and Indi Hartwell double teaming her and locking her out. But that's dumb because as soon as they did that, then it was like, okay, they're going for a pin. And well, Io Shirai's not in there. You can't win the match, idiots.
Right.
So I didn't really like that. It did set up something that was kind of fun, though. And it's odd, which is Io Shirai put herself in a garbage can and then she jumped off. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah, you've seen Toy Story 4. You know how Forky's just like, I'm trash.
Yeah.
She is trash.
I liked also the moment where Dakota Kai stomped onto Io Shirai and she was wrapped up in a garbage can
She's
again.
fucking in the car.
And
Dude,
she
I was
gets
worried about her.
she got stuck in the trash can to the point where Kai couldn't take the trash can off to actually pin her. Totally not planned.
Amazing. Amazing.
And it ends with Team Candice LeRae winning, and they do so by Raquel Gonzalez power bombing Io Shirai through a ladder. So, damn it, Team Shotzi, you lost me some points on the fantasy league. Not a fan of that. Didn't expect that to be the case with Raquel getting the win, especially over Shotzi. And
how weak did Shotzi look here?
she didn't really do all that much, yeah. And you know what? I put her down as I'm not her, the person I'm about to say. Somebody else I put down as one of the losers of the night is Io Shirai. Because I'm like, what did she do in this match? She got like the inability to go into the match 4 times. She jumped off in a trash can, got stomped in a trash can. Yeah, she did like some kicks and she did whatever, like she did that kind of stuff. But then she took the pin. Like that's really not a good look for the
It
NXT
was
Women's
clear to me,
Champion.
even if somebody was turning heel or if the baby faces won, whomever pinned in this match was going to be the number 1 contender.
I figured that would be Toni Storm, or at the
I,
very
I like
least
Team Raquel
that.
because now we know that there's New Year's Evil, which is like just a special episode of NXT on January 6th. She can fight at New Year's Evil against Raquel, and then Toni Storm, if she is the anointed one, can
Fight
face
at the
her at
takeover.
NXT TakeOver WrestleMania. I'm not saying a city because we don't know where.
Well, that's also
Yeah.
one of those things too that's kind of up in the air, is we don't know what their schedule is for the next year. They have been teasing this whole thing, or not teasing. That's totally not the right word at all. Why did I say teasing?
Yeah.
They have been doing this thing this past year, both NXT and AEW, where they're just having regular episodes of the show, but they're just adding a little bit more flair to them. Like we had seen Great American Bash, Halloween Havoc, and now New Year's Evil on January 6th. Which, for the record, everybody that's we're cool with that name. I know a lot of people are not really all that into it. It's, it's hokey, but it's fun. They could use New Year's Revolution, but that's nothing anything
I like
spectacular.
let them have their own thing because they've used Super Tuesday, they've used Great American Bash, they've used Halloween Havoc. Let them make their own thing.
I'm cool with New Year's Evil, and I like that idea that Raquel fights her there because to me that's not good enough for a takeover event.
You
And
know
we
what I'm
don't.
not cool with? Monday Night Raw, Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, New Year's Evil.
That's that the lineup.
Yep.
Well, guess what? I'm not watching Wrestle Kingdom. I'll try to watch it at some point, but I won't be doing my like pay-per-view coverage of that kind of stuff because that's not something I wouldn't even know who half the people are at this point anyway. But I like the idea of Raquel doing that because I don't think that that's good enough for a takeover event. Like you're right, if you do this in the meantime and you can build up Toni Storm, that's the better way of doing it. So I don't disagree 100% with the idea of Raquel pinning EO, but I do feel like WWE sometimes they keep relying on the whole somebody pins the champion so they become the number 1 contender and then the champion will beat them and that balances out type of thing. I'm also just like not feeling a resolution here yet. It seems like we're not going to get too much of one because apparently Candice LeRae might have broken her arm.
Yeah, so Triple H just said on the media call that they're not certain about the broken arm. They think it may be, but she's getting checked out now, and we'll see. It was definitely on that senton spot, though.
Had to be. I mean, she's
That
holding
looked
the
nasty.
chair, and that didn't look like it landed right. So,
But if she does need to take time off, can she please come back to the main roster? Like, I love her on NXT, but at this point, even NXT's not using her.
I guess it would depend on how long she needs to be out. Because really, what now? Like, what would she do? Like, her storyline at this moment is basically that she's watching out for Indi Hartwell. So, other than to help out Indi Hartwell, which she could do as like a manager type.
Yeah, she can even do that with a broken arm.
Yeah, like at that point, unless she's the one that beats Io Shirai for the title, which she should have just done that when she was fighting for it before anyway, then what's the point? You know, I still think that those two need to go up to the main roster.
But for that matter, though, you touched on what's left. The fuck is left for Rhea Ripley?
For a couple of these people at this point, and this will transition to the next thing, what's left for Tommaso Ciampa?
Oh my. Okay, I just want to wrap up on the women's division because I would even argue, what's Ember gonna do? Is Ember really relegated already to like, I'm just gonna help people get over? I understand that in wrestling terminology, like that's a great spot, but I think for fans of Ember, like they've kind of been robbed of like a good run for her.
To be that young into your career and to be resigned to it's over and all I'm going to do is be enhancement talent is a little bit sad.
I mean, like, you know, he wasn't on this card, but a guy like Tyler Breeze is there, you know? There's a lot of these people who are just sort of in the I'm just gonna help other people get over. Hopefully they have a better full-time run than I did, you know?
And somebody like a Triple H would say, well, you know, not everybody can be the guy, not everybody can be the top, whatever,
He
which is
explained that really
true.
well about Danny Burch.
Yeah, it's true. Like, you can't literally give the title to everybody, but at the same time, that shouldn't mean that you shouldn't strive to get to that point, because plenty of people have turned their careers around. I mean, Drew McIntyre was a part of 3MB and
That, you know
fired.
what though? That is true. So like, I don't know. Maybe I'm too used to the old school mentality of like, well, they're almost 40, even though it's like, what is AJ Styles, 43?
40 something. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like, maybe it's just a different way of looking at the business.
Could be. But Ember Moon is in a weird spot. I can't imagine her winning this championship anytime soon. Rhea Ripley desperately needs to go to the main roster. Candice LeRae, I don't think that there's much for her to do. If she's injured, that's even more of a thing. That's like, all right, well, you're not going to do anything for a while. Kind of in a
Did they
weird
just?
situation with some of the people.
I feel bad for Candice because her first year, she was just like Johnny's wife. And then like she had a nice baby face run where even then she was still mostly Johnny's wife. And I think she finally found herself and it was almost immediately too late. You know?
Bad timing, I think, because if
Yeah.
they would have needed a different heel, I think that she would have been a champion. Yet they're just, I mean, this year Triple H admitted it. This year the NXT Women's title did not go in the direction that they wanted it to. So that's
And Io's reign, I know like Callum loves her, but I feel like Io's reign has been largely forgettable.
not as forgettable as some of the other reigns on the whole roster this year, but yeah, it's not like it's like you're gonna look back and be like, okay, well, what about these great matches that this person had on their run? You know, these great moments. This thing happened, that thing happened. I don't feel like that about Io Shirai quite yet. But I do think she's obviously carrying the title into next year. Maybe she'll hold it long enough that she'll make up a bunch of memories.
Yeah.
We then had, was this the part of the night or what? Actually, I didn't write it down when this happened, but I'll talk about it now because I don't remember when. They did a little tease that Karrion Kross is coming back soon.
Yeah, it was fine. I thought he was just gonna pop up. And
You think
I
he's just
assume
gonna beat the crap out of Finn Balor and win that belt back?
Balor, yeah.
Kind
Which
of hoping
sucks
that
for
that
Balor.
happens.
But like Balor, if he does that to Balor though, Balor is immediately in Ember Moon territory for me.
I think he already is.
But
Balor
he
came
had that
back to NXT and it was like,
last year or
oh,
whatever.
the prince is back and I'm gonna like really turn things around. And all he did was basically act like a douche and like fight a couple people. And he won the championship. Sure, he's a champion right now, but that's not out of some grand scheme plan. That was like a necessity. He's a secondary backup option. They
That's
gave
fair.
that belt to Karrion Kross. Guaranteed, Karrion Kross was not going to drop that belt immediately to Finn Balor. If anything, maybe it would have been months from now. Maybe Balor would have beaten him. But they haven't had much of a direction with Finn Balor because he hasn't even been a straight up heel, babyface, or tweener. He's basically just been going around. I'm going to feud with Gargano for a few weeks. I'm going to feud with Velveteen Dream for a couple weeks. Some of these people in general, I don't think that they have a game plan for. And again, that makes me back to Tommaso Ciampa. Not that long ago, Tommaso Ciampa was beating the shit out of Jake Atlas to turn heel, and now he's an angry babyface fighting Timothy Thatcher, and I just get this sense of like, this will hold it over until we do the thing we want to do, which is maybe he goes to the main roster, maybe they start a feud with somebody differently. I'm imagining Ciampa versus Karrion Kross happens sometime at a TakeOver in the future soon, and that's why he's a babyface again. But just that whole idea of like, well, we're going to turn him heel for a few weeks, and then that'll be interesting, and then we could turn him back, and then we could ever. I'm not digging that. I don't like the idea of you being able to just do things on a whim like that because you can't figure out anything else, and you need that safety net, you know?
Right. I know. So, full disclosure, like the quote that Hunter gave about Taker was, "Oh, he's moving into the next part of his life, and that involves the future." And initially, I assumed he was talking about Ciampa, just sort of moving into, oh, well, maybe he'll be like a producer or something. Because I can't figure out where they want Ciampa to go. I definitely don't feel as strongly about him as I did last year and in years prior. But what's worse is I already have written off Timothy Thatcher. Like,
Yeah, he could have.
he
He
needed that
didn't
win.
need to win this, but he could have used a win here, that's for sure.
I think he needed it. What's he done?
They can still rehab him, I think. He can win that North American title at some point. But I'm not getting this he can headline WrestleMania feel. That's for sure.
Yeah. Which is sad because he has the ability to headline WrestleMania. This match will put hair on your chest if you watch it.
They beat the shit out of each other. Timothy Thatcher's ear was bleeding. It was just pouring out blood at one point from a stiff knee.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought that this was a rough, hard-hitting match.
Banger match. This was the only normal match on the show, and it was a brutal match. I loved it.
This was my third favorite match of the night, I think. But yeah, it was, you get people that beat the crap out of each other, and it's hard not to enjoy it, I do feel like it's a little bit just sort of meh. Like, the feud's not particularly great. It's not doing much for Ciampa. It's not doing much for Thatcher. It's kind of like a holdover situation, but I enjoyed it. I like both these guys. So it's a thumbs up. It's just not the biggest thumb up in the world to me. But it's way better than the strap match. That was the down point of this whole night. And I do like Dexter Lumis, although I see the criticisms of like he needs to do more. And Cameron Grimes, of course, he's a great character.
Say it again.
Well, I gotta have a little bit more momentum. I can't do it in the middle of that sentence.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm rolling along a little too much to switch it over and just be like Cameron Grimes, But he is fantastic when he's talking and everything, and he's fun. But this was boring.
So Hunter put Cameron Grimes over on the pre-show Q&A where he's like,
he's going straight to the moon.
he's like, honestly, I think he hasn't even shown people how good he is in the ring because he's so focused on the character. But he's one of the best that we have. And I'm like, okay, so Cameron Grimes can go somewhere. I think
Triple H is going long term, 5 to 10 years. Cameron Grimes is gonna.
The biggest problem with these two, and it's not necessarily a problem, it's just not my cup of tea. This match could have easily been on Extreme Rules. This could have easily been a feud that played out on Raw. It doesn't feel, and it didn't give me the NXT feel.
Well, here's multiple issues lumped into one idea. The main idea is it's not really their fault that they were booked in this scenario, but they had a lot of things working against them here. Lumis is playing this Undertaker-esque kind of character where he's not selling a lot, so that's not the most thrilling thing in the world. Cameron Grimes is very energetic, and sometimes putting him with somebody who isn't can be kind of funny, but also sometimes if he has nothing to play off of, then it's just sort of in a vacuum. This is the third strap match we've had this year. All of them now at this point are pinfall and submission, so it ends with a submission the way that the other things have. So that's nothing interesting. And you don't do the reverse of a build to something. Like, everybody knows a crescendo. Even if you don't really know the word crescendo, everybody knows what a crescendo is. You build towards something and you get better and better and better until the biggest thing happens. And then it ends up going in a downward slope after that, where you just go like, all right, now we had the big blow off and now we can relax, sort of a thing. You don't go with the most interesting thing and then follow it up with things that aren't as interesting because you've already reached a peak. What are you looking forward to? And they did the Haunted House of Terror match. That was fun as hell. And then they did a blindfold match that ended with, yeah, he just ran off, and I guess that's the end of that segment. And then a strap match. It's kind of like, well, you know what I was going to say? It's kind of like doing a gimmick match and then doing a regular match. And they did that this year. They did the, let's do a big-ass brawl, and then afterward we'll have a normal match. I don't know what their philosophy is with that kind of setup.
How many times did they do that this year? I know they did it more than once.
I was thinking of just the Orton and Edge match, but they've probably done it with something else, too.
Because they did fucking let me rip your eye out of your head. Oh, by the way, next week you'll just have a tag match with... We'll have a tag match with your son. You know, like...
And they did have the Rollins versus Ray Extreme Rules match, and then the feud ends with a regular match on SmackDown.
Yeah, see?
So it's like, you're going ass backwards here, guys. Like, do the blindfold match, and then he runs off in the blindfold match, so that's why you have to strap him down, and then do something weird with the strap. I don't know, the strap breaks or whatever. Gimmick it like that, and then go, fine, you know what? You guys are in a Haunted House of Terror match or whatever.
I guess the issue was that Haunted House of Terror is such a Halloween thing.
And I mean, that should have been the end of the feud. They shouldn't have carried it on. It should have
been a one-off. It really should have.
Yeah, because they said what they needed to say. Cameron Grimes runs away. He's scared, all that stuff. And Lumis should have just been fighting with somebody else, and Cameron Grimes should have been fighting with somebody else. You know?
I hate that I don't like Lumis. I want to, but it just feels so
contrived,
childish. Like it really does. I don't know. There's something weird about it, and I can't understand why this is the one they want to hang their hat on.
Well, this whole match, I just felt almost nothing for, because it's a 3-step thing, strap matches. If you don't have the whole tap on the turnbuckle thing, it just ends like any other normal match. And in the meantime, you watch somebody pull somebody, whip somebody, or strangle them. So once you see whip, 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 pull, whip, pull, whip, strangle, pull, whip, whip, pull, strangle, pull, whip, you're like, all right, come on, just end it. And it went on way too long. So the most interesting thing of the whole thing was the very beginning of it, which was Cameron Grimes brought his own strap on, as he said. So Cameron Grimes loses.
What was the match where, like, it was like the first time people had ever heard of a strap match, and everybody just went straight to dildo? And it was earlier this year, so it might have been the other Lumis one. But yeah, that was a weird thing that happened this year. Oh no, it was the Bryan one where he's like, I'm gonna give him the strap, and it's, yeah, people did not take that kindly on the internet.
It was Bryan and Fiend, and then there was Lumis and Velveteen Dream.
It was Roger Strong.
Strong, that's what it was, yeah. Dream and Lumis didn't feud, did they?
No, they were tag team.
Yeah, I don't know why am I thinking that was the case. I think that would have made more sense, you know?
Yeah.
but
But
whatever.
I guess they didn't want Dream
Yeah.
around.
Then we had a triple threat match for the NXT North American Championship. Before we get into that, though, let me just toss out a couple quick plugs for the people that are just like, hey, you're not going to do that? Yeah, I will. Patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment. If you want us to do anything in particular and we are not getting around to doing it, then you can sponsor it through the Pick Your Poison tier, but maybe that's a little too steep for you. And if you just want some more content, you have access to more Patreon exclusive things on the Dark Casts. Those are $10, and anything obviously higher than that, you get the back end of things. And if you do not trust the Patreon platform, but you do want to be a part of that, then the YouTube has the little join button. It's the same thing. You'll get the same content there. You can also check out the merchandise shops on TeePublic and Redbubble. So if you want me to make some kind of a strap match joke t-shirt or something, I will figure out a design if it comes my way. But you can pick all sorts of different designs and you can slap them on all sorts of different products as well. So between TeePublic and Redbubble, for a Smark Out Moment, for a Mango Tees, and for the other website, Fanboys Anonymous, there are plenty of different things you can pick up if you want to get yourself some kind of a cheap gift for the holidays or gift to yourself, whatever it might be. Everything's on sale at this point, and I think that it's pretty much going to be on sale going until the new year, but I don't know for sure, so take advantage while you can. And if you don't know what Fanboys Anonymous is, that website is the geek culture website that I do movie reviews, and I will talk about anything on the geek culture spectrum outside of pro wrestling. So go to fanboysanonymous.com, show more love for that, because the more that people go there, the more support, the more subscribers on YouTube, the more followers on Facebook and Twitter, the more clicks on the website, the more that I will dedicate time to doing more of that content. And I would love to do more of that content for you guys. Got a couple other things for you to be aware of. I will mention them a little bit later on too, but let's go back to this North American title match. It was Leon Ruff heading in as the champion, defending against Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano. And I didn't like that they did the whole take Ruff out of the match and then bring him back in thing. I didn't think that it served much of a purpose. It didn't feel like that whole, this guy's got a lot of heart and he's coming back from something that's big. The Razor's Edge didn't really look all that impressive enough. And I think that the reason why is twofold. One, the barricades don't look the same. Like, you're not crashing through something that's like, it looks like it's broken. He mostly looked like he just knocked something over. And two, we just saw that WarGames match and the Thatcher and Ciampa match. This did not look like it hurt anywhere near as much as some of the things that they did in those two matches. So for him to get taken out and brought back, plus he's also been like the loser. So it's not like, oh man, like the guy that you're really cheering for and it's super great is going to come back in and I really want him to win and I'm rooting for him. He's been kind of like a joke. That's the whole point. So when he comes back, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, this kid's got a lot of heart and that's cool that he's back. I'm just going, wait, why did they even bother taking him out?
I understand that. I think so. First of all, this is like my first time watching a full Leon Ruff match, and I understand this dude is a toothpick. And I'm like, look, I'm no one to talk, but like this dude looks small. He had the belt around his chest and it still fell off during his entrance. It still fell off of him. He can't keep this belt on him. And literally, because he lost it. But I don't know. I feel like that particular setup would have worked better had he won the match. But he didn't. So it just seemed, like, oh, we're trying to show that he has heart, but ultimately he's a loser.
Yeah, it's not my favorite type of booking. This whole thing, I haven't been enjoying the Leon Ruff thing. It's fun for a moment of a shock, but then you go, crap, you just downgraded the North American title.
But I respect them for not dragging it out.
Yeah, I'm thankful that this ended with Johnny Gargano winning the championship back, as he never should have dropped it to begin with. I still think that Damian Priest really should have never dropped it to Johnny Gargano, to be honest.
I disagree, because I think Priest is one of the very few people, more than Keith Lee, more than whomever has been called up to the main roster this year, more than Riddle. Damian Priest screams main event of WrestleMania to me. There's something about him that I could see him in the ring with John Cena, like a John Cena of 10 years ago.
I don't go that far. I do really like him, though. I think that he's one of the better guys that gets overlooked. I'd put him below really Keith Lee, though, you know?
I know, I'm not saying, like, I think Keith Lee is a better star for the modern era. I'm saying Damian Priest looks like he could have fit into an era of 10 years ago and even further back.
You know who he kind of reminds me of a little bit? There's not like too many parallels, so don't start like eviscerating me in the comments below and going like, this guy looks like this and this guy looks like that, or this guy did these moves and whatever. But he gives me a vibe of like, what if Crush was better in the ring?
You know, I can agree with that. And I would even say he gives me a vibe of Sheamus when they first started pushing Sheamus.
I could see that.
But better.
But I like him because I didn't like Sheamus at the beginning of that.
I didn't like Sheamus either. Sheamus was a hard adjustment for me.
Yeah, that's one of those like early articles you'll see on Smark Moment where it's me adding a speech bubble to a picture of Sheamus and saying like, I won the title because my workout buddy has pull with the company or something. Like, eventually, of course, I grew to the point where I'm just like, yeah, Sheamus is actually pretty fucking cool. But you know, Damian Priest.
10 years, pal.
Damian Priest does not win the title here. He had a good moment here. I liked quite a bit where Ruff is in the Gargano escape and Priest is trapped in the ropes and he's yelling, "You better not tap out!" Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I think what was supposed to happen there is Priest with his long reach was supposed to kick the rope closer to Ruff.
I think so.
He pushed so hard that he just untangled himself.
Yeah, it didn't work out the same way. But I thought it was fine, you know. We ended up with a scenario where like 6 or 7 or so people dressed up as Ghostface from Scream, which at this point, they've ran enough Ghostface things that I wrote it down on the wrestling news thing. I was like, you know, they really should just reach out to the people that are making the new Scream movie and just try to figure out some kind of a sponsorship deal, because this is like... There's a lot of attention given to a character that's from an outside franchise.
Yeah, and they don't usually do that.
No, I mean, if anything, like, Alexa Bliss had her Freddy Krueger-inspired gear, and they were not even mentioning that that was supposed to be that. So they've put, like, they're flat out just referring to them as like, oh, look at that, it's another Ghostface. The Ghostface superstars, whatever, like.
So this is like a army of Ghostface. And the best thing was T-Bar tweeted, "Oh, so that's what happened to our goons. Johnny Gargano took them to celebrate Halloween or whatever."
That's funny because I wrote down on the wrestling news thing, somehow they're still more intimidating than Retribution. That's funny.
That's a good line, and yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know why they chose to have so many Ghostface when we all knew the main one did get unveiled.
And so speaking of great lines, this one Ghostface in particular helps Johnny Gargano score the victory, win back the title, and he unmasks and he says, "It was me all along, Austin." It's Austin Theory. Fucking brilliant. Loved that. That legitimately is one of my favorite parts of this whole event.
Austin Theory came through. This man performed at WrestleMania, and I know we're gonna write off WrestleMania 36 as non-canonical, but like, this dude does have WrestleMania in his resume.
That is totally going to be one of those events where people go like into trivia and you start going like, who wrestled a WrestleMania or whatever, and people will be like, I don't remember who won this thing or whatever, and like, you know, one of those trick answers, trick questions, I mean, where it's like, who won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in 2020? And you'll be like, all right, so Baron Corbin won, and Big Show won, and Braun, who won that or whatever? Then you're like, haha, that's the year they didn't have one. Like, one of those kind of deals. But Austin Theory, I think, has a lot of upsides to him. And even just the fact that he did this alone, I was like, all right, extra brownie points. This is great. I loved that.
Hey, pop quiz. Who did Bobby Lashley lose to at WrestleMania 36?
Shit. Wow. So he had been feuding with Rusev.
Right.
He didn't get to the McIntyre stuff yet.
Right.
Oh my god, who did he fight?
He lost to Aleister Black
Huh.
on the main card. That happened.
Could have fooled me.
2020, everybody.
2020 is just
To the point where NXT literally did a thing where they were like, yeah, we're getting rid of 2020. And we're doing 2021, New Year's Evil.
Yeah.
Like, that's how bad this year is.
I like we said before, I think that the name's kind of hokey, but I like it. New Year's Evil's fine. It's a regular episode that just has a little gimmick attached to it. It's not like it's a pay-per-view. Not like they're getting rid of SummerSlam and going with New Year's Evil where it would make any sense.
Yeah, but if NXT decides to run Beach Break, I mean, if AEW decides to run Beach Break on the same day, it will be a pay-per-view. It'll basically be a pay-per-view.
They didn't say when Beach Break was?
Not yet, but they did say January.
Wouldn't shock me at all if that's what it is. Because, I mean, like a break at the start of the new year or whatever. It's cold out, but we're going to have a beach kind of thing. Like, probably the case, which is just going to be like the Great American Bash versus the Fighter Fest, or was it Fight for the Fallen?
I believe it was Fighter.
They got to stop with that. They shouldn't have Fighter Fest and Fight for the Fallen.
Like so that. Close.
Especially since they're both just like, you know, random aside, AEW really starting to kind of just do the same things all over again. I get it. You got Fighter Fest as a beach theme, and Fight for the Fallen had a beach theme for some reason again, and now you're going Beach Break. You're doing a beach theme again. Bash the beach.
They like to hang out at the beach, Tony.
They like the beach and they like gambling. At this point, it's those two things in Game of Thrones.
You gotta tell Tony Khan's a rich kid. Like,
yeah, that's true. Now they're gonna start having AEW. I said an abalone sandwich.
Chowder.
Chowder. Chowder. I'll kill you. I had a great reference to something later on. I'll mention it a little bit later. Before we get into the main event, another plug to toss out here. Let's talk about, for some reason, as soon as I just said, let's talk about, my brain immediately went, sex, baby. But that's not what we're plugging. Good song, though. Let's talk about the feedback, because this is December. So, of course, we're getting to a point where we're wrapping things up here. And one of the things we do every single year is the 2020 end of the year Smark Out Moment Awards, otherwise known as the Smarkies. And you can vote on what you think the best and the worst segment of the year is, and the best host of the year. And in the same form, it's the audience feedback survey, where that is a great way for you to tell me some information about what you like about the site and about the podcast, what you don't like, what you want us to do more of, what you are sick and tired of us doing, how we can make things better, any of those kind of things. It's down to things like, what time do you listen to our podcasts and check out our content, to more specific things like, here are a couple ideas I'm thinking about doing. What do you like? So please find the time over the course of the next few weeks to go to the little sidebar of smarkoutmoment.com, click on the little feedback button and fill out that survey. It would be something that I would greatly, greatly appreciate, because it actually does help out quite a bit. And let's move to the WarGames match, the men's match finale of the night. Undisputed Era against the Kings of NXT. Pat McAfee's team. They went straight through the entrances. They started things off with Kyle O'Reilly against Pete Dunne. I have a little note. Give Kyle O'Reilly a belt so he can play the air guitar properly, because he's off key without a title. I tried to do predictions of the entrance, didn't end up getting them entirely right. They swapped Burch and Lorcan. I would have gotten it right other than that. But Lorcan comes up after that. In comes Bobby Fish after that one. And there's another line of Fish is fired up. And I was like, ooh, salmon's good.
Dude, I ate salmon tonight.
Salmon's so good.
I had salmon and french fries.
Danny Burch comes after that, and then I wrote the reference. I'm sure some people will get it 10 points if you do, which is cricket. Nobody understands cricket. You got to know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
It's gonna bother me now.
Ah,
Go
you don't
ahead.
got it offhand. All right. Well, nobody tell Rob. Pat McAfee comes, and when he's entering the mix, he brings out a bunch of tables, and they are spray painted with the Undisputed Era's names on them. And I'm thinking, man, I hope that everybody goes through their table. Pat McAfee, fucking great again. This
First
dude,
thing he does is a picture perfect moonsault.
amazing moonsault, arguably better than Io Shirai even. He does a moonsault later on. He does a swanton. This dude's great. How good is this guy?
He's so good that they didn't even have him take the pin.
Yeah,
And that shocks the fuck out of me.
I'm glad he didn't.
No, because, well, we'll get more into it as we go, but the way this match ends is not the way I expected.
Not the way I expected either, but I'm glad that they kind of preserved him a little bit, because now I could see him winning matches a little bit more and not just being there to lose and, you know, that kind of thing. Because Pat McAfee this year, he's on my list of being like, I might give him one of these best awards. Like, this guy's fantastic. He's better than most of the roster on the mic. And I mean, if you look at something like Ember Moon doing her Hurd Karana, you're like, you've gotten years of experience on this. You should be better than Pat McAfee. And why is Pat McAfee better than you? Like,
Wade Barrett had a great line. He says, "You have to love Pat McAfee. He combines the athleticism of Seth Rollins with the hateability of The Miz." And I'm like, yep.
it's a good combo, yeah. Unfortunately, not everybody went through the tables that they were set up for. I think that that's a missed opportunity. They did a thing, like, for instance, where Cole pushed McAfee through a table and it was the O'Reilly one. I'm like, it should have been the Cole one.
McAfee fucking flew. He flew. This dude is so athletic. He flew through this table, and it was way too far back, and he managed to hit it because he jumped so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mistake was every individual team member should have put McAfee through a table with their name on it. So this one's
that could have been fun.
Like, I thought that's where they were going, and I think it's a mistake that they didn't.
Well, they did have, like, Fish put Burch through the fish table.
The fish table, which made sense.
So I think that they could have done things like that, and that would have been fun. But it ended up being McAfee through the O'Reilly, Burch through the fish table by Fish. The Cole table was a botch. That was Pete Dunne was supposed to be power bombed, I think it was. I'm trying to remember now. Through the table on top of.
It did not break.
Burch or Lorcan, one of the two, and it just didn't break. So then Strong just had to do a splash.
Knee drop, I think.
Knee drop, it might have been, yeah. He just jumped, and it was just like, all right, you're just doing the typical thing where it's like, crap, didn't work, jump on him. Always sucks when that happens. I like the moment where Adam Cole is not knowing how he's going to get into the ring when he came out, and the way that he makes the 4-on-1 actually kind of even as he used the fire extinguisher. So they're all like, shit, I can't see. And he's like, now I can get into the ring and start hitting you with a chair. That was smart.
You know what I saw a lot of tonight? Well, Triple H must have really loved when TNA did Lethal Lockdown because there's so many weapons in this match. I'm like, have you not seen a WarGames ever from this company? They always do this.
Yeah.
I just thought that was weird that, like, this year people were like, I think there were too many weapons in these matches. It's like, there's always weapons.
It's kind of the point of it a little bit.
Yeah.
If not, then they're just fighting and they just happen to be able to throw each other into a cage. Then it's the same as a regular cage match. Who cares? Just happens to be a second ring.
Small note real quick, because we didn't talk about it in the first one. I love the way they set up this cage. I love the fact that it was just so secretly kind of hanging. And they do this thing in NXT. I don't know why they haven't adopted it in the main roster, where the cage walls are flat on the top. Like they, just when they lift up the cage, it just folds on the ceiling, so it's not like, this big monstrosity hanging above the ring. It's just safely put away, and then they lower the cage in the most stylistic and unique way possible, where it just all kind of folds in together. And small thing, I just think it's really cool.
Is missing the dum 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 kind of thing though.
Yeah, but I like that they leave that to the main roster.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Kyle O'Reilly gets the pin for his team. He takes out Oney Lorcan, and it's a damn good match.
Hold on, because that finish was something. Because Pat McAfee's a crazy motherfucker who does a swanton bomb off the top of the cage, which, by the way, I guess Beth Phoenix doesn't know what a swanton is, because she goes, "What an incredible maneuver!"
She pulled the maneuver thing.
It's like, yeah. So Pat does that. People are bitching that they didn't catch him, and I'm like, if they'd all stuck their arms out, I think it might have been harder for him to land. But he lands perfectly on all of them, and I thought that was amazing because he never does this stuff. Thought it was interesting that they had him kick out of the Panama City Sunrise. I think it's very unique that Pete Dunne takes out Adam Cole to the point where it's actually the other boys who get the job done. There's a callback to when Roderick Strong first turned on Pete Dunne because he's got Adam Cole pinned, and right before the referee hits 3, Roderick does the same stomp that he did in New Orleans 2 years ago. Then Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, who may be one of the only teams that faced the tandem of Roddy and Kyle, they get the total elimination from Fish and Strong. And then Kyle O'Reilly does a knee drop and kind of gets the vengeance for the team. I thought that was very interesting that it didn't come down to Adam Cole makes Pat McAfee look like a bitch inside of WarGames.
Yeah, so even though the finish is sort of like a different direction that I would have imagined, and admittedly, probably a different direction than I would have necessarily booked, I'm cool with it because Pat McAfee didn't take a pin, and Pat McAfee's amazing. So it's like, and the Undisputed Era needed to win this too.
That pushed him out of the way, so he didn't take the final shot.
Yeah,
and he kind of sacrificed himself.
Yeah, because Oney Lorcan. Oney Lorcan pushes him out of the way, takes that shot. Then they switch between a couple different people here and there. So he gets Cole's finisher, and then like everybody else's essentially. That's a good way to just kind of, all right, you take a lot of finishers, you're gonna get pinned. Like Lorcan doesn't look weak by any means of by taking the pin.
I loved it. People were like, "Oh, this is where somebody's going to turn on something." No, keep the Undisputed Era strong. They looked really good. I love the coordinated attires for WarGames, and this is what I came for. This is the show that I subscribed to, and it was great. And I look forward to WarGames every year.
Not as strong as I thought that it would be, admittedly. But then again, I went in with really, really high expectations. So as long as it's a good show, it's a good show. And outside of the strap match, there was like the bottom of the line was the North American title match, and that was good. So, thumbs up. Not my favorite pay-per-view of the year. I will give it to something else, not to spoil the end of the year awards, but it's not going to be my favorite. And I don't think that I'm going to give anything any kind of positive or negative awards for this that stand out, except for the fact that maybe this is the thing that seals the deal that Pat McAfee gets something. But
Pat McAfee, if he sticks around, might be the NXT champion.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. He's that good.
I agree.
So again, drop your comments below. Tell us your thoughts on what we said, what we didn't say, what you want to say. Hey, whatever. I think that kind of wraps up the actual talk of the pay-per-view itself. Of course, we don't know.
What's your favorite match on the show? Men's WarGames or women's WarGames?
Men's WarGames.
I would agree.
Yeah. I'd go men's WarGames, women's WarGames, Thatcher,
threat.
and then
Oh,
triple
yeah.
threat, and then strap match.
You know what?
Although,
I'm gonna go
like,
right there with you.
I'd go the vignette of everybody saying WarGames way over the strap match.
Yeah, that was great.
Like,
That was
cut the strap match out and just have that promo thing, and it's like, all right, cool, good segment, you know, kind of thing. We don't know yet what's going to happen with NXT New Year's Evil, but we will, of course, wrap that into a further discussion down the line, next week's hot tags or something. And if you're wondering the next couple things that are going to be coming your way on this channel and on the website itself, obviously there's weekly things on the website, and you never know what I'm going to post, because I might just post like a creative license or something, or a random extra feature or whatever. But at the very least, I know that the game plan right now for the next main event is going to be Missed the Smark. We didn't get a chance to do that at all this year, so we're going to kind of cram it in at the last minute. But it's December, and I was trying to think of some topics that could maybe work. And what we're going to do is, for the first time, I'm going to watch a pay-per-view that I had never seen. That's kind of the whole point of Missed the Smark, is you're watching something you never saw before that's either like noteworthy or it's infamous or something that's like there's a reason you should check it out, positive or negative. We're going with December to Dismember because I've never seen what is supposedly the worst pay-per-view in WWE history.
I wonder. I guess it still probably ranks high up there. You know, it's funny. I think nowadays we wouldn't be as like shook by the lack of announcing matches, and like there's certain things that they did on the road to that show that nowadays is almost commonplace. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if it's as bad as I recall.
Yeah, so you and Callum have seen it before. I
I have
haven't.
not. I'm actually in your neck
Oh, you
of the
haven't?
woods.
Ah, so two
I've
out of
never
three
seen
then.
this full show.
So Callum's going to be able to provide us some kind of, okay, this actually held up better than I thought, and you know, it wasn't as good as I remember it being, or whatever it might be. And we are going to be checking that out for the first time ever, and that's kind of what Mr. Smark is going to be about. It's kind of combining going over and wrestling with the past and a review point, all in the mix. Or pay-per-view point, review points with Fanboys Anonymous stuff. Same deal, you know. I like my gimmick names, so that is heading your way. Of course, we have our usual hot tags. We got the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, all these other normal things that we got cooking up. So you just keep staying tuned to the website. You keep staying tuned to the channel. You hit that subscribe button. You follow us all over the place, and you'll be aware of anything else that happens on top of all that mix. But you got some other stuff that you got going on. What do you want to plug?
Yeah, you should check out Fightful.com and Fightful Select. Fightful.com is where I do the news on the weekends, and is soon to be where I do the news Monday through Friday, and potentially get weekends off, which won't happen because WWE is always doing something. But check out Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp works really hard on the scoops and all his information. It's never speculatory. It's always completely sourced and vetted, and you should really give that a chance. If you like stuff like the Wrestling Observer newsletter, imagine paying the same price but getting updates regularly throughout the week, in addition to extra podcasts, in addition to a newsletter style release. It's all great. Check out Fightful Select. Follow me on Twitter, as Toni has mentioned previously. Check out Paul Heyman's SmackDown podcast in the archives currently on the YouTube channel. The most recent episode premiered last night, where Callum Wiggins and myself go through the December 5th, 2002 episode of SmackDown, where Paul Heyman was the head writer. And he's also the manager of the WWE Champion throughout this entire journey, whether that's Brock Lesnar, or currently the Big Show, or somebody to be named later. There's also like the weird Dunne Marie and Tori Wilson stuff. And as I mentioned, if you subscribe to the Dark Tier on the Smark at Moment Patreon, we're going to be reviewing the very beginnings of softcore porn. And it's just like, women's wrestling has evolved so far from, hey, why don't we just have them do lesbian porn, to, hey, let's have them kill each other inside of a cage. And I'm so glad that we're here. You know,
And there's somebody out there going, "Oh, that crosses over both of my interests."
Crossover. Yes, but I'm so glad that we're here. And check out everything we've got going on. support Toni, donate $1. Even $1 helps. He's got a wedding. I want to go to it. Maybe you could pay for my ticket if you donate $1. I think there you go.
Keep that in mind, everybody. That's something that's never going to go away. So this next year, it's going to be a lot of, I got a wedding to plan. This sucks. Like, not the wedding planning sucks, the money. But yeah, we got all that going on, and who knows what else is happening. So just kind of keep hanging out with us, and we hope that you'll enjoy whatever else is happening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. We hope you enjoyed NXT TakeOver WarGames, and we'll see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment. We're being counted out.
WarGames.